Hello again folks. We've had quite a bit of new stuff and fairly recent stuff of late, so let's go old school. The motor generally separately go for around 50 quid if they're boxed. Many of them lose their 6th gear, it generally breaks, but that still leaves 5. Because you've got to add the set parts to that, you've got to add the box, which is in reasonable condition. It's stained, it's a bit worn and dog-eared, but it's all solid. And the set is still sealed. To the best of my knowledge, I have never looked inside this set. So I know from my research they were introduced in 1965 under the Triang ownership of the Meccano company. So I don't recall lifting the lid on this. I know it's sealed. And if you're of a nervous disposition, look away soon, because I'm going to be breaking the seal. I can hear the cries of anger and tears as I speak. Don't worry, it's not coming yet. An awkward thing to video. It's a fairly large box. It won't stand up on its own. That's why I've got a Meccano Spanner acting as a bit of a ramp to hold it up. I reckon value wise, going back to that, you're probably looking at around 70 quid, 80 quid. But as I say, the motor is a sort of 40 to 50 pounds generally, easily, if it's boxed anyway. Then you've got to add on the parts, the fact that it's complete and sealed. You know, this one might even fetch 100 quid, but who knows. I don't buy them for investment, I buy them to use. As I say, I haven't lifted the lid, so let's lift that lid. You are joining me at the first time of looking at this one. So there we are. Well, I say sealed, I don't know whether it is actually sealed or it's got extra sealing on it. So now I can definitely tell you that I have never looked in this box, because I don't know, and it would have this what looks like cling film around it. So maybe those who have a nervous twitch, if you like, when they hear about me breaking into a sealed Meccano set of old, maybe you won't have a heart attack on this one. So there we are folks, it wasn't sealed, but probably the best wrapped Meccano set I've seen. You got bubble wrap, a layer of, covering almost all of the tray. You got cling film on the front, all the way wrapped around one way, then all the way wrapped around the other way, and none of the parts will be able to move. Any set that's in a tray like this, or the sort of vacuum formed plastic trays, my Hermes, I think they play rugby with them sometimes, but I had a lovely sealed one and that, all the parts are at one end. If anybody's watching this that is selling, or wants to sell sets, please wrap them firmly with packing and some cling film round it, so they don't all end up at the other end of the box, or indeed lost. Bubble wrap, cling film, box lid if you've got it, and perhaps cling film the box lid. It's rather frustrating having to sort a set out. Even worse if parts have been lost because of poor packing. Right then, what have we got? Meccano motorised power drive set, 1965 to 1969/70, when the set's all changed. Deleting the 9 and moving everything up 1. So a 0 become a 1 became the 2, 2 became a... It looked cheaper to the consumer, but of course you weren't getting as much for your money. Doesn't look to have been awfully used a lot. We've got a bit of marking there. The screwdriver looks quite square on, but of course they may not have used that screwdriver. It does look like it's been out, because you can see a mark there where it's put another crease, an impression in the polystyrene, and we've got damage around here. But overall it looks pretty complete and fairly little used, not much at all. There is a bit of a downside to this motor. It is up to 12 volt, and providing 12 volt with batteries even today is going to be a bit of a pain. Yes, you can use an adapter or a transformer. Train transformer's perfect for your Hornby 00 or more modern 00 stuff. That should be fine, but battery wise, now I was thinking of making in fact I did try and make it with what few parts I got at the time when I was a kid, the locomotive there, the diesel electric loco, but I don't really want to have to go to the trouble of providing insulated pickups, so in other words I'm going to have to carry a battery around in it or in a wagon behind it. I'm just wondering whether I can get a small motorbike battery 12 volt to suit, or 2 6 volts perhaps, and as long as they're not too heavy, and hopefully either run it on O gauge track, Hornby O gauge track, or maybe make my own track with Meccano, which can be done. It's a damn sight easier to do it with just straights though, so we'll see. The box is fairly good, it's stapled in the corners, so it's held together very well, and the lid is quite decent. Yeah, it's a bit rubbed and slight tears here and there and that, but That is pretty good. In that corner there you can see it's quite extensively damaged because it's sort of hollow underneath, there's nothing really to support it. Several models we can make. Value wise, I'm no expert, I'm like everybody else, we look on eBay, there's a few other places selling Meccano, we see it available sometimes in charity shops and whatever. The motor, 50 quid is the main point, and I dare say people would buy the set if it was even just partially complete, just for the motor, as long as the motor works of course. The parts to add to it would probably be, if you bought them separately and in good condition, probably 150 quid, but the set itself doesn't bring in that much value. No real Meccano sets do. They always look worth a lot more to me anyway than they are worth. I mean, you see number 10 sets, a builder's set say, for about 1700 quid, and yes, there's a load of parts in there, but then they say it doesn't have a cabinet of any description, let alone an original, in any condition. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, I know it's a lot of parts, and generally they can't be bothered to check see if it's complete, so that's always a downer for me. So if you like a builder's set where it's quite used but complete, is probably a grand tops with a 10. Of course, being on an auction site can ruin the value. Something could go for a fortune and it's not worth that, or it could go for peanuts and it's worth a lot more than that. So looking on eBay isn't the definitive answer, as it were, and like anything you've still got to find a buyer. Obviously if I sold the motor separately, which I'm not going to do, that wouldn't be 50 quid because it hasn't got its box. Let's say 35. That's probably at the cheaper end. I don't know, double it for the parts, so let's say around 70 quid. And you could add or take away 10 quid, 20 quid on a good or bad day. In some ways, it ought to be worth more, but it's not. It just isn't. The market is relatively small for it, and like anything, condition, age, original rarity, if they didn't produce that many sets, is always a variable, shall we say. And those things do make more money. But Meccano as a hobby is very small these days, at least in the UK. Right, enough waffle about values because it's very variable. And to be honest, I don't buy for the investment. No, I buy to enjoy. Cutting out all the waffle. If the instruction book is the one that came with the set, it's July 1969. Now this may not focus, but just there, July 69. The PDU, as most people call the motor, the power drive unit, 6 ratio gearbox and 6 volt. Well, I didn't know that. I must admit I thought these were 12 volt. Well, that's 2 things I've learned today. One was about Mecha Spider and the app for it, which I didn't know existed, and now this. Well, there you go folks. It says the gearbox of the power unit provides 6 ratios. These are marked on the end face of the housing and are 3 to 1, 6 to 1, 12 to 1, 16 to 1, 32 to 1 and 60 to 1. Newer Meccano builders, especially to the newer Meccano sets, may be a bit alarmed at some of these instructions. This is number 1. This is a dumper truck, 3-wheel dumper truck. As you can see there, you're lucky to get that many outline drawings. Parts list of course. Now that's pretty similar to today, except you've got images today. You've got parts lists with numbers and the amounts of that you need, and of course that's just part of the parts list where you can cross-reference with, which is not as easy. We've got a couple of Fairground Writers. There's the first one, the roundabout with aircraft on by the looks of it. A plain food mixer, which is, well, different. You can make cake with her. This one intrigues me a little, the mobile pile driver. Windmill, well, I've got a thing about windmills and steam engines in the fact that they're not, I know it's a representation of the real thing, but it wasn't driven by a steam engine in this case or a motor. It was driven by wind. So yeah, I know it's a representation and it's showing you it working. Just don't sit right with me, especially with steam engines, even though I have run steam engine myself with steam engines. This is the likely candidate to be built, the locomotive, but don't know yet. We do have a lathe. I do like things I could drive with a steam engine one way or the other, say either by using a dynamo to power the motor on this or directly. I do like that sort of thing. Is another variant to the hobby, if you like. Crane, that's nice. Forge crane. Screening machine, presumably that was used to sift different sized gravel, rock, I don't know. Can't show you that one because it's against my religion. That is nice looking, the merry-go-round, I do like that. That's quite nice. I've got a lot of fairground stuff though, but again, you can use it with a steam engine. Other tools, got a bandsaw, a bit weird looking but intriguing, the traction engine, drilling machine, which is perhaps not as good looking as the original 1961 version I made from a number 4 set, but not bad, and it looks like it does have a bit of a lifting mechanism to the table as well, which is certainly better than the 1961 version, and a horizontal steam engine. So not bad, good condition booklet. Those of you who have been around quite a while will know that these are all common parts really. Not so much now, the 12.5 inch strips for example, not common anymore. Maximum you generally get is 5.5 inch, which are those there. But of course we have the motor, and that's the main thing in this one, and let's have a look. I've never had one of these to use. So here we are, the PDU, Power Drive unit, with your gear ratio selections there, and the little locking tabs, if you want to call them that. So that's there. It's not that heavy actually, but there's the Meccano Spanner, the latest version, and it's just a shade longer than that. Of course, holes in the base for your nuts and bolts to secure to. There are the details, and as you can see there, it confirms 3 to 12 volt. So I always thought they were 12 volt, but to read that in the book, I don't know. I wonder if that's better safe than sorry, I don't know. Of course, I suppose that with the gearboxes in a lower ratio, you generally don't need so much power. Well really that's it folks for different stuff, because as you can see the type of setter that it is, most of the parts are laid out all for you to see, and they're all pretty standard apart from that motor.